Hi everybody, a very welcome to a very special Mentor live. So in today's video I'm going to talk about why my video that has been so much discussion about all around the world was taken away from the channel, why you didn't have a chance to see it, and I will also explain some other things and of course answer your questions. So please stay tuned.
Wind 31016, everyone right, right on. Third land, 31 right. Delta 260. See you later, dude.
Right guys, welcome back. So as you have noticed, this will not be a normal Friday video. I had a video lined up for you, and I'm sure that you're aware by now by all the different medias around the world, including Reuters, New York Times, the Seattle newspapers as well, that this video existed. Okay, and I'm going to explain to you now once and for all why I cannot show you this video. And it has nothing to do with pressure being put on me from organizations or from my company, from Boeing, from anyone like that. It is my own decision. And what happened was that I have been working for the last about 1.5 to 2 weeks together with a famous aviation expert called Björn Färm, and his company, Björn Färm Liham Company. He's a fellow Swede, and we've been getting to know each other a little bit, been talking a little bit over Skype, and we've been discussing some stuff that bothers us, all right? Obviously, since the 737 MAX and the issues with the MAX have been the subject for the for discussion for the last few months now, we were discussing that. But above all, I was talking about how frustrated I was with the portraying from social media and from media all over the world that was kind of questioning the quality of the pilots that were flying. Basically, the sentiment that was coming out was that pilots from Africa wouldn't be as good pilots as pilots from from America or from Europe, or that they would be kind of first, second, and third class pilots. Now that bothered me a lot. Okay, so we went into discussion to see whether or not these pilots might have actually done the right thing, right? And from that, we had basically a line of discussion about what could possibly have happened. And from that, I had the chance to try out some of those theories in the simulator, okay? And it led up to a result, okay, that was fairly spectacular, and it was a very good video, but it would have explained a lot of things. He wrote a column with these theories, and I can link to that below later on after this video is completed. And he also wanted to link this video to that column, to the article that he had written. And I had made a video, and I gave the link to them, tell them that that's fine, because I thought that was only going to reach a limited amount of people anyway. But I didn't really think it through. All right, I was working very fast, and I didn't think it through. And when I had released it, I started thinking, and I contacted a very good friend of mine and also a colleague of mine, and I said, listen, I've done this. Okay, we've been discussing forth and back a little bit about different theories about what how the stabilizer acts when it's out of trim at a very high speed, and how you might get to that high speed. And my friend, which I'm really grateful to today, said that, listen, that's speculation, and it's speculation about an ongoing investigation, something that has not been released. We don't have the facts, and in any case, whatever you have been doing in a simulator, whatever it might be, it's still not going to be the same exact conditions or anything. So that's just sensationalism, all right? And when he said that, it kind of dawned on me, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I've been saying that I would never ever do. You guys have subscribed to my channel because you want unbiased facts from me, all right? That's the reason that that you want to see what I'm saying and want to listen to what I'm saying. So for me to go out and speculate without having any facts behind, that would counteract everything that I stand for and everything that this channel stands for, okay? So I immediately then went in and I asked Björn to please take away the link, the theory, as in the article and how we've been discussing forth and back, that could stay, because that's something that, you know, I actually believe in. But the video was one step too far, so I took it away. Okay, he took it away, but the problem was that the damage had already been done. This newsletter had gone out, and it had hit a lot of major news organizations and a lot of top level people within the industry who'd seen it and, you know, appreciated it for what it was. But that meant that this has been spreading out. So I've been spending the last 24 to 48 hours now trying to explain to people that I do not want to comment on an ongoing investigation. It's my own fault, all right? I'm the only one to blame here, because I fell into the same trap as I've been talking about. So that's the story behind the video. The video will never be shown, all right? It's not going to come out. It's not going to come out in any way, shape or form. Because it's not right. It's not what this channel stands for, and I hope that you guys appreciate that. And of course, because I had that video done, I have no video for today. So this is what I can release for this week. There's going to be a brand new video coming out next week with some really great stuff that I hope that you like. But for now, I'm going to take your questions instead. And once again, guys, I will be answering questions from, for example, about the report that was released, but I will not be speculating into why. Okay? I can only give you my experience, and I haven't flown the 737 MAX, so I'm not going to give you exact, you know, details about the MAX, because that wouldn't be right either. I hope that makes sense, guys. So we already have a few questions here, and of course you can use the Mentour Aviation app. You can see that people are already sending messages from the Mentour Aviation app. If you haven't downloaded it already, that's where things happen. That's where the shit happens, guys. So there are links down here that you can use to download it. Okay, so first question on the super chat here is, hi Captain, how are you and Sandra? Patch is fine too. Yeah, Sandra has hurt her foot, so she's lying in the sofa since a week back. I am still not flying because I'm still receiving tests back from a possible kidney stone, which didn't hurt as much as you guys said, but it seemed to have passed. So hopefully when I get my results back, I can go back flying again. So we're both flying. And Patchy, the poor thing, we brought him to the vet to get a haircut yesterday, and they misunderstood how much hair they should cut on him. So he is now down here, ashamed of how he's looking, because he looks like a rat, unfortunately. So he probably won't be in the next couple of videos until his hair has grown back, poor thing. But he is a toy poodle, and they basically cut his hair like a poodle, which is something we didn't want. But anyway, so. Cool. I'll take some questions from the normal chat. I know that you guys don't like that I only take super chats, so I'll take some from the normal chat as well. Keaton Hancock, are the 737 MAX still grounded? Yes, they are. Okay, so Boeing has announced a software package that will look into all of these problems that they have been talking about, the MCAS activation, how much MCAS has authority over, the fact that it's now connected to 2 alpha vanes instead of 1. That is being rolled out, but before the MAX can go back flying, they need to get that certified. So the FAA, the EASA, all of the authorities need to be made assured that the software fix is doing what it is what it's supposed to do, basically. So yep, they're still grounded. Dog Paulie, it takes a big guy to stand by his principles and to admit an error, particularly an error made when attempted to do the right thing. I respect you. Well, thank you. Yeah, it was an easy choice to make, to take down the video, even though I realized that since major news media all over the world was linking to this, was going to pick up that video and link it, that would have given that video millions of views, but that's not what I'm after, right? The integrity of this channel and the integrity of the information that I give you guys is what this channel is all about. Without that, this channel is just another gossip channel. It's just another outlet of theories, wild theories, and you might as well go out and read on Pete Roon if that's the case. So that's what's important to me, and I'm going to stick to that from now on. It was a great learning curve, I have to say. Like, I did not realize how double-egged the social media sword was until I did this first really mistake. All right, I haven't been doing much mistakes so far, but this was a mistake, and it was a mistake that immediately had consequences. As in, it was up for an hour and a half. It had 1,700 views during that hour and a half, and that was 1,700 people in top level positions all over the world. So believe me, I will not make that mistake again. All right. Now, having said that, when you read the article, it looks like at least some of the theories that we had is still holding, about the forces that are being subjected to the stabilizer and the elevator. If the stabilizer is very, very out of trim at a very high speed, it will be very, very hard to trim to trim the stabilizer manually. But this is not news, guys. This was actually in the Boeing Flight Crew Training Manual. It's still there. There is a description of this in there, but it was not as emphasized as it was back on the 737-200, for example, where it was actually described in detail. So, you know, it's not real news that I'm coming with, but we were the first ones to think about it. And that's why it became such a big deal, all right? So, Sam Petros, to support your decision. Well, thank you very much. Joe Perkins, hi. Failures aside, ever used differential thrust? Yeah, I have actually used this differential thrust. I did fly an aircraft where we got a overheat warning on one of the engines, and the memory items there tells us to reduce the thrust until the overheat disappears. So we had to fly that flight with 2 engines with 1 on reduced thrust. So that would give differential thrust. Right, so more questions. I'll take some from the normal chat as well. So, there is a lot of questions. There's some of them that I can't really read here, unfortunately. So, hi Mentor, can you tell the story shortly again? I wasn't here the last few minutes. Well, this video is going to stay here, so you can just go back and review it, okay? Did Boeing manufacture the angle of attack sensor, or is it contractor supplied? I don't know that for sure, all right? My sources tells me that it is a contractor supplied, but I don't know that for certain. Have you considered any role by a patented Boeing uninterruptible autopilot? No, I haven't. I have read a little bit about it, but no, I haven't really, since it's not something that actually, to my knowledge at least, exists. I haven't talked about it. Right, so I'll take some questions as well from the Mentor Aviation chat here. Mentor, this might be a stupid question, but how come we don't hear any statement from Airbus regarding the whole issue? Because that would be highly inappropriate by a competitor manufacturer to get into this discussion, okay? Just like Boeing wouldn't do it if something happened to Airbus, Airbus wouldn't do it if something happened to Boeing, okay? It could backfire badly if Airbus started to get into this discussion at all. So they would never do that, you know. And also, we're still waiting for the final reports on all of these 2 MAX incidents. So before anything is said there, I don't think that we will hear any word from Airbus. I would be very surprised if that happened. Okay. Okay, so hello Mentor, can you please tell us about what's on the preliminary report of the Ethiopian airline crash? Well, there's a lot of things on there, and I prefer for you guys to read it yourself. If you remind me, I will link to the preliminary report down here. It is actually readable, even if you're not a pilot. You can understand the kind of concept. If you read the summary part, it will tell you exactly what happened in order. But if you have any specific questions on it, I can try to, well, I have it here, so I can try to dive into it and read through it. But once again, I am not a Boeing 737 MAX expert, I'm a 737 NG expert, and it's slightly different. So, Jeremy Canna on the super chat, thank you very much for supporting the channel. On an ordinary normal flight on a 737, does a pilot touch the trim wheel by hand or at any point? And does that differ across plane models? Yeah, I mean, we never touch it, okay? We see it running, but the fact that it runs quite quickly, and if you have that little handle switched out, it has a tendency to hit your knee, Okay, so whenever we have used it manually, which would only happen in conjunction with a non-normal checklist, you have to quickly put that back in again, because if it starts moving, it will definitely hit, well, the captain's right knee and the first officer's left knee. So no, but there are aircraft out there. I mean, the Cessnas I flew in the beginning, you have manual trim on, you move the trim wheel. It's a tiny aircraft, obviously, so it's a completely different thing, but still, yes, there are aircraft out there where you have to trim it manually. Doug Pauly, how much contact with the military do you have as a commercial pilot? Do they impact your job other than if a pilot busts a no-fly zone or goes silent? We have no contact with military unless it is absolutely necessary for safety reasons. They have their training zones. The only time that actually impacts us is when they open up a training zone and we have to reroute around it. So our traffic control comes up and said, listen, we have active military area ahead. You have to fly to this waypoint now, and this is tiny little reroutes. Normally, it doesn't really affect us. The only time that we would ever directly communicate with military would be in case of loss of comm. So if they would come up and we've gone silent, they want to come up and check that everything is okay. But otherwise, no, never. Okay, so more questions then. Take some from the normal chat here. Why not 3 angle of attack sensors? Why did one fail? Well, we don't know. We don't know what failed. We don't know if it was a sensor or if it was downstream of the sensor, as in the connection with the sensor into the computer. And I mean, the question of redundancy, you can continue forever. So if you have 3, why not 4? Well, if you have 4, why not 5? 2 angle of attack sensors. I've been flying this aircraft for 18 years. It's been working absolutely perfectly. I actually had a lightning strike in one of them only about 8 months ago. And it worked fine even on the one remaining alpha vane. So, in this case, 2 alpha vanes, providing that all the systems are redundant and are relying on 2 sensors. So if one goes crazy, the other one picks up the slack, then, you have the redundancy you need generally. So, the app channel. People believe the first officer wasn't as qualified because he didn't have many hours. What's your opinion on that? I am really glad you asked that. Okay, because this is another thing that really, really upset me. Okay, I know that there has been some prominent figures out there that have been saying exactly that. Well, he had no place to be in the cockpit anyway. He only had 300 hours. All right, so let's break that down then. I am flying in Europe. It's very, very common to start your airline career just after flight school. Right, you do your flight school, you get your licenses, the licenses that tells you that you have been checked out to have the competences needed to be a commercial pilot. Okay, the authorities, EASA or whatever, except the FAA and I think the Canadian FAA as well, everyone else around the world says that once you have trained and you have provided proof that you have the competences needed to get the license, you can start working as a commercial pilot. If that wasn't the case, well, then they would increase the amount of hours or heighten the competencies. All right, that's number 1. Number 2 is since 2005, I have been training pilots with coming out of flight school, 250 hours generally. And the thing is that even though you do get some life experience by attaining 1,500 hours, which is the minimum in the United States, yeah, you are subjected to the airspace more, right? There's no question of that. You do get more experience, you do get more exposure. But when it comes to the difference between sitting in a Cessna and flying a 737-800, for example, the guys that have 1,500 hours and start are just as new as the ones that start with 200 hours. Exactly the same, all right? They have the same problems with landings, they have the same problems with rotations, they have the same problems with workload, they have the same problems learning SOPs and sticking to SOPs and understanding SOPs. There's no difference because everyone are children in the beginning. Everyone has to start somewhere. And the thing is, you can't do, when you have 1,500 hours, you are not going to have 1,500 hours on an ATR or a small. No, what's going to happen is that people, they get their licenses, then they stay at the flight school and they work as flight instructors. And I'm not going to take away all of the experience that you get as a flight instructor because it's great, but it is not easily applied to a commercial airliner. That's just a fact, right? It's a completely different type of operation, completely different type of flying. So even though you have those 1,500 hours, of which 1,300 hours has been in the right seat of a Cessna teaching other pilots, you are still going to need some significant amount of training. So it's, this 1500-hour rule that came in the US. It came in after a terrible crash. If I don't remember it correctly, I think it was outside of Buffalo, where two pilots came into icing conditions, misidentified the icing conditions and a subsequent stall, and ended up crashing the aircraft. An investigation into that, I'm not going to quote this literally because I haven't got the report in front of me, but I think it was down to essential pilot error. And the Congress then decided that, well, pilots need more experience before they can fly commercial operations, or at least fly airline operations. The problem was that those two pilots that were involved in that crash, they had more than 1500 hours, both of them. Okay, so the sentiment that, we need 1500 hours minimum, well, these guys, they had, I can't remember what the first officer had, but it was more than 1500 hours. So it's kind of taken straight out of thin air. And the fact is that in the operation that I'm doing and the experience that I have, the 200-hour guys, providing that the SOPs are robust, providing that the safety culture of the airline is correct, and that everyone sticks to their SOPs and follows procedures, works perfectly. Okay? Without a doubt, it's one of the most successful training programs there is, and they come out to become really great first officers, and they become captains if they have played their cards right and they have all of the knowledge and the competences needed. They can become captains at 3,500 hours, which can come as quickly as 3.5-4 years. Once again, providing that they go through all of the tests and they are successful in their training. But this means that you can start as a 20-year-old with 250 hours. You can become a captain at 24. But you have what it takes. You've shown that you have what it takes. Okay? So I get very frustrated when I see someone making assumptions, saying, well, this first officer had 300 and something hours, so he's not qualified. In my view, that's not correct. Okay? Mistakes can be made. They can be made by a captain or a first officer that has 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 hours as well. But we have to focus on that. All right. If it comes out, if after a lengthy investigation it comes out that it's not safe to have pilots flying with less hours, well then the limits will be increased. But do not assume that just because of a relatively low experience or because of where they come from, they are less capable as pilots, because it is wrong. Right? You will have really good pilots flying where you least expect it, and you will have really bad pilots flying where you least expect it. Even though the really bad pilots should be kind of picked off during recurrent checking and line checking. I hope that answers your question. At least that's my point. Once again, my view here is my own. All right? I don't represent anyone else than myself when I say this, but I really believe in what I'm saying. So, more question. Lawrence Spinner. Hi, Mentor. Do you feel the media reports with so-called experts has done a disservice to the public and to Boeing? That's a very hard question. In fact, during the last few weeks, the so-called experts have actually done a fairly good job in most cases. But that's when they've found experts that actually know the 737 and what they're talking about. When they go to generic experts, as in experts that are just aviation, have general knowledge about aviation, but not specific knowledge about the type, then it can become wrong. All right? I mean, my personal experience now as well is that no matter what you say, it can be turned and put in a direction which is not what you intended. So even though an expert might say something that actually doesn't make sense if you know about it, there's still going to have to be the filter of the reporter who then has to write about it. And if that filter is not knowledgeable enough, whatever comes out on the other end is not going to be accurate. So no, I don't think that they've done a disservice. I think that they have done a very honest attempt to explain very, very complicated issues. But whenever you know something about any area, right? Let's say that you're really good at making ice creams, okay? The day that someone dies because something in ice cream has been made incorrectly, the media will try to explain that to the public. But you, who know how to make ice creams, you will see all these little inaccuracies, and you say, well, it doesn't work like that. We don't do it like that. But you have to understand that on the other side, the general public, they need to get a simplified explanation of what's going on, and sometimes that doesn't really match with exactly the way it is. But given that the overall picture, if the overall picture is okay, then you can always come to the real experts and get it more thoroughly explained. And this, by the way, is why I've created the Mentour Aviation app, right? So that you guys can come in and you can talk to me and other pilots that are in the app and ask questions to us, and we will try to explain it from as technical point as you want it to be, or as simple point as you want it to be. I want it to be an integration, a place where people can come and ask these kind of questions in a positive, constructive environment without feeling stupid. Because I know that there's a lot of passengers out there. You might be a passenger watching this right now who just wants to know if the aircraft is safe. They want to hear why it's safe, and we can explain that to you. But there needs to be an interface, and the Mentour Aviation app is exactly that. So, from Eric Hunt, based on your reading of the report, do you think that the pilots attempted manual trim with the trim wheel? There's some disagreement on this. Yeah, I do, and I mean, I have the tracer here. This tracer here shows you basically all of, well, not all of the parameters, but some of the flight parameters that are in there, and it shows trim input mainly from the electric motors, both from the automatic electric motors and from the manual electric motors. Okay, but what I'm basing that on is because the pilot, the voice recorder, recorded the captain asking the first officer if he could trim it manually, and he responded that he couldn't. Can you trim it? No. Can you trim it manually? No. Now, I know that the controversy is whether or not the first officer might have misunderstood it, but believe me, if the memory items for the runway stabilizer has been done, there's no question that they know that the next step is to try to trim it manually. And this is where, of course, my video was coming in, because the fact is that if the stabilizer is in a very out of trim position, and the pilot is pulling on the elevator, to keep the aircraft level, if those two things are combined with a very high speed, where we're talking about 300, 340 knots, 340 is our VMO, we wouldn't go over that, then there can be so much pressure on the jack screw, as in so much force, because remember that the forces increases with the square of the speed, so it increases exponentially. So it's not like 200 and 220 knots or 250 knots, that's still perfectly okay. 300 knots is going to start being very heavy to move that manual trim, because remember, that trim is connected via wires that goes back to move the jack screw. This is a physical wire that is being moved, okay? It's something completely different than an electrical motor that is connected straight to the jack screw. So I would say that my personal thinking of what I heard from the cockpit voice recorder is that I think that they did try, and I think that it was so hard that they would have assumed, or could have assumed, that it was jammed. So, and once again, you can get out of that. All right, there is a possibility to get out of that. You can do something called a bunt, which is where the you raise the nose of the aircraft and then you push it forward, so you unload the stabilizer. And when you push it forward, when that unload occurs, so then the forces from the jack screw will disappear and you can quickly trim it. All right, and then you can do a few of these. That's why they call it the roller coaster technique. And if you do that a couple of times, you will then get enough trim authority. Once the aircraft comes into trim again, as in once the stabilizer is in a trim position, well then it should be fairly easy to trim. It's just when it's in extreme positions with the elevator moving against it, that's when you might have a problem trimming them. Once again, this is described in the manuals. This information is available in the Boeing manuals right now. It's just that it's not connected to the runway stabilizer checklist in the QRH, for example. So, PS 19 Victor 1, should the MCAS be deactivated during initial takeoff and activated at a certain altitude? No. And also, I want to really emphasize this, guys. I got a lot of criticism for the video that I did, it was about a week back now, when I answered the 5 questions because people said that, yeah, I'm so pro Boeing, you know, you're so bought by Boeing, and that's not the case. You know, you have to understand that even though a system can be faulty, and Boeing has gone out today, like the Boeing CEO went out publicly today and said that we think that that MCAS was involved. Everything looks like the MCAS was involved in these two accidents. That's a big thing that Boeing does that. Even though you have a system that doesn't work right, okay, that system can be fixed. It doesn't mean that the entire platform, the entire aircraft is unsafe. This is one feature, and if they've done a proper software fix to that, so that the system has limited trim authority, so that it doesn't reset when the pilots trim against it, it only has the 2.5 degrees that it was supposed to have, and it doesn't reset and do another 2.5 and 2.5. Well, if that's the case, and they've sorted that, and it's now connected to 2 alpha vanes, and it has the backup needed, well, then the system will work. It's just like the Boeing CEO is saying, that system will not be faulty again. And I stand by my assessment that this aircraft, when it's let to fly again, when it's certified again, this aircraft is going to be one of the safest aircraft out there. They would have gone through this aircraft by a tooth and comb to check for any kind of problems or failures related to flight controls and things like that. So a fix where you turn off a system and turn it back on again, that's not how the airline works, or the airline world works. It works by making sure that if there is a defect somewhere, a component, there shouldn't be, you know. This is why we have authorities making sure that everything is okay before they get certified. But if there has been a mistake, and people do make mistakes, well, then that system is rectified so that it's fully safe. And once it's fully safe, and only then can it be released out to the flying public. And you should be able to trust that is the case as well. I certainly am. When the Max start flying again, I will have no problem flying it myself, right? I trust the work that they're doing right now to be correct, okay? And if I, who's going to be sitting there day in and day out, can trust it, I think that you guys should as well. And this is not me. I would say exactly the same if this was an Airbus, or if this was a Sukhoi, or if this was an Illusion, or whatever it might be, okay? I have to trust the manufacturers, and because I base all what I'm doing every day, the procedures I'm doing, the checklist that I'm reading, the emergency checklist that I'm reading when something goes wrong, are all built by these people. If I don't trust them, if you don't trust them, then no one can fly. Unfortunately, that's the truth of it. So I think that the MCAS issue will be fixed. I think that this is going to take a long time to certify, because I think that it's now gone political as well, and it's become a huge deal for different reasons. And I don't know how the legal system in the United States works. I think that this grand jury that's being summoned might delay it as well. But whenever it is released, it should be safe to fly. So, more questions here. Take some from the Mentour Aviation app as well. Here, there's lots of quiz people asking. So, Jung644, Mentor, since the Max crash, my fear of flying has come back. I have to fly to work in a few weeks, and I'm trying to calm myself down. With all the coverage of the Max crash I have been watching, actually now I'm losing that particular message. Let's see if I can find it. There we go. We're watching several videos. I came across an old one. Now I'm very concerned about flying the older 737NGs. The video talks about whistleblowers from Boeing saying the aircraft was made with... Well, yeah. Alright, I've seen that video as well. This is a video that was made regarding some whistleblowers that was stating that faulty part was being put on the 737NG. You can be absolutely sure that... Once again, I have flown the 737NGs for 18 years without any structural problems with it. And the last 737 that came out of the batch that was using that factory that was mentioned in that documentary, I think was done back in 2002 or something like that. So that will be 17 years old now. We don't fly any aircraft that is that old. But once again, you can't be very careful with what you watch on YouTube, guys. Like, there is a lot of sensationalism out there. This is why I pulled my video, because I felt that I was falling down into that rabbit hole myself. So just think about the narrative. You know, how fun would it be to do a documentary, to watch a documentary where they didn't come up with that something was dangerous, and how likely is it, after having seen all of the chaos that's happened over the last few weeks, how likely is it that the FAA, for example, would... Well, I'm not going to talk more about it. I'm just going to leave that alone. Don't be worried. I hope that watching videos like this and asking these kind of questions, that does calm you down a little bit. And once again, this is also a reason that I have this YouTube channel, so that you can ask these kind of questions. Because you should ask them to professionals, the ones that are sitting in these aircraft day in and day out, always. Okay? If we would be worried, we would say something. When I'm worried about something, it can be the tiniest little thing. I ground the aircraft. Okay? I've been sitting on the ground with the aircraft because the anti-collision light was broken. Right? Not the light, the actual glass around it was broken. And why did I do that? Well, because I called my maintenance department. I said, listen, there's probably been a bird strike or something. It's hit the glass is broken. And they say, well, in that case, if there's pieces that are missing, you can't fly it. We have to get an engineer there, and we have to at least secure it to make sure that there's no little pieces falling off of it that can go back and hurt, damage something else. So anything, even the tiniest little thing, paper dropped in the wrong place, we call our engineering department, they go through the manuals, they say, is this safe or is it not safe? If it's safe, do we need to do a procedure? If there is a procedure, that procedure is done by a licensed engineer or sometimes by the flight crew if we are allowed to do it. And if it's safe to fly then, well then I'm happy and I fly. If they say this and this needs to be fixed, we wait. This is why you get these technical delays, right? This is why we're sitting there swearing about, we should have gone 3 hours ago and they're still not here. But that's because they're waiting for qualified personnel to come and make sure that your flight is as safe as it's humanly possible, right? This is the way that the airline business should always work. So if you want to have more conversations with me about this, if you go into the Mentour Aviation app and you use the submit feedback function, you can send me an email. I try to answer it, but you have to also understand, guys, all of you who's listening here, that I do get a lot of messages. Sometimes I can't respond to emails, but I do what I can, especially in the cases of people who are nervous flyers and stuff, because I do really genuinely want to help. Right, there's more questions coming up here. So, Streaming Spoon 60, how do some aircraft vary their hold leg distance at the same fixed VR during approach? Is that altitude dependent on ATC instruction? Yeah, the altitude is depending on ATC instruction, and our procedure says that below a certain altitude, about 14,000 feet, we do 1 minute legs, and above that we do 1.5 minute legs. So yeah, we vary it by programming our FMC to vary the length. Basically, if you do it manually, you do it by timing. But yes, ATC is the one that's ultimately responsible for the holding both patterns. They can tell us to do an unstandard pattern as well. Fabio Lutz, hi Mentor, do you know what's happening with the crew people that were operating the MAX airplanes? Are they jobless by now, or can they be allocated to other 737 models? Yeah, I mean, if you're 737 MAX rated, then you're also 737NG rated. You might have to do a difference training, like I was talking about in my video before, that you have to do a theoretical training. That goes both when you go to the MAX and then back to the NG again, because the differences are still going to be differences no matter if you're going up or down in the chain. So they will have to do some training. They might already have that training. Like, the likelihood is that you might fly 2 different fleets. So you might fly both the NG, you fly the NG one day and the MAX another day. So in most cases, providing the airline have enough aircraft, then you'll be flying. Otherwise, you'll end up sitting on standby. If the airline has to reduce flights, which is the case for most airlines that has the MAX, well then there will be less jobs, and ultimately if the airlines start not needing pilots, of course it's going to be redundancies. This is not good for the airline business, guys. The airlines out there that have MAX are suffering from this, and it's going to bleed a lot of money, which is not good at all. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen from that. We will have to see. This is going to be an ongoing process for probably years to come. Alright guys, so Ralph, Mex Aviation, Sebastian Brown, thank you very much for supporting the channel. Greatly appreciated. And by the way guys, if you I hope that you guys have noticed that I do have some merchandise as well here. You know, if you want to if you want to have a Mentor T-shirt or a Mentor coffee cup or something, it's here. I think below most of my videos you'll be able to find it. But you can also go into the Mentor Aviation app and get a collection, right? This is how I'm constantly upgrading the app and making it better and better for you. And there's a big update coming very soon. But the only way that I'm taking money, because the app is free, is by people buying the training collections that I have in there. So if you want to join, see me instruct you on how to fly, do a rejected takeoff and emergency evacuation, for example, and then go in there and get a collection, and that's then you're really supporting the app part of the channel. More questions here. Nerdy Drew, do you think pilots had the altitude to perform the roller coaster maneuver? Once again, that's me speculating. I don't want to speculate on that. They were only at 1,000 feet AGL. Even if they would have been able to pull the nose up, because that would have actually gained altitude and then pull it down. If they could, they probably would have. And I don't think that the first thing that comes to mind is letting the nose go. And once again, this roller coaster, the bunt procedure to get the stabilizer going again, it might or might not have worked, and it's definitely something that it's going to be very far away in a pilot's mind if they're going through a traumatic experience. So very unlikely. Very unlikely. Every type of video supporting the channel. Thank you. And so Vasilis Kapnas, Mentor, thanks for the video explanations. Well, thank you guys for being here. Once again, I'm sorry that I can't provide you with a video this Friday. I hope that this works for you. There will be more videos coming up, I promise you that. And soon I'm gonna have to go because Fridays are video night with my kids. Right, so we always order in food, download a video and watch it together, and that's about to come up now. But I wanted to do this because I realized that otherwise this will be the first week in 4 years that I didn't provide a video, and I wanted to come with some explanations about why the video that was supposed to come up didn't come up as well. And I hope you accept my apologies for falling into the trap of starting to speculate, and my apologies for not having a backup video ready for you guys. It sucks, but that's the way it is. All right, I'll take some last questions here from the normal chat as well. I know you guys are watching for a reason. Where's the Mentor dog? Well, I can show him to you, but once again, he's quite ugly at the moment. He is embarrassed by himself. You should have seen when they took him out. I couldn't believe what they'd done to him, but I'll show you. Patchy, come. This is Patchy now. He had a lot more hair before. Patchy. Ja. Titta. De tittar på det här. And his friend Molly, who's a tiny little dog, is even smaller than him, looks even more ridiculous, unfortunately. Well, sorry, there might be guys out there who think that they're really cute when they're short-haired, but I'm one of those who likes the poodles with a little bit of hair. So, more questions, then take a few more. Max is safe, please answer to this question from Murat T. It will be, when it's released to fly again, it will be safe. And more question. He's cute, yes. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. All right, guys, I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope that you're having a fantastic day. I hope that you're taking care of yourself, and like I said, be a little bit careful with what you follow, what you read and write on YouTube and on the internet. There's a lot of good sources out there, but there's also a lot of questionable sources. And so, Enrico Asproni is asking a really good question here. Is the blowback elevator issue confirmed? No. None of these things are confirmed. All right. The only thing we have are these streamers, the tracers, and this is unfortunately everything that we can talk about, because there's no more explanations to them. From that, people can draw their own conclusions, and in a few years, it's probably going to take at least a year to get the final report. There's going to be some kind of an explanation. But for those of you who doesn't know what a blowback is, this is also one of Björn Färm's earliest theories that he came out with only, well, about a week and a half ago, I think. And that's based on his experience of being a fighter pilot. Blowback is something that happens when a flight surface is being subjected to extreme dynamic pressure. So at speeds that are well outside of the flight envelope of the aircraft, the forces acting on the, for example, elevator or stabilizer might be so hard, so strong, that the hydraulic pressure that's activating the rudders is not strong enough. So no matter how much you pull, the motor, the hydraulic pressure is not enough, and the rudder surface doesn't move, and it doesn't work. Okay, that's blowback. But that doesn't happen. That, first of all, that's why we have things like a maximum speed of the aircraft, because the designer of the aircraft has decided that within this speed, it's going to be safe. It's going to keep together in one piece. It's not going to have blowback issues. If you go outside of that, if you go out, let's say it's 340 knots on the 737, you go up to 400, 450 knots. Well, then, of course, you're so far outside of the envelope, and the dynamic pressures that are being subjected to it is so far outside of what it was designed for that you might get things like blowback. But generally, blowback is only something that you would come across on like fighter jets. More questions. I see there's a few. Don't send any more super chat questions now, guys, because I'm going to have to leave. I'll take the last ones. Great informational channel. Thanks for the video explanations. Thank you very much. Do you agree that crew put trim switcher back on at the end? Well, once again, I don't want to speculate on that, but what we can have a look at here is if you look at the trim, which is at the top here of this picture, you can see, at the very top of the picture here, you have the altitude and the speed of the aircraft, which of course goes up to something crazy towards the end. But just below that, you can actually see the trim and the way that the trim has been inputted. And this is the motor, the electric trim motor that's coming in. Okay, so let's have a look at that. You see the little purple? That the purple tops there, those are trim inputs made by pilots of the using the electric trim motor, and the blue line underneath, that's the automatic trim working. So you can see that there's a long pause there where there's no movement whatsoever. It's no movement from the pilot's stabilizer trim motor, and it's no movement from the autopilot stabilizer trim motor. It's the same motor, but still, and that would, that would be indicative. We don't have the indication of the switches, but that would be indicative of the stab trim cutout switches being in cutout. Okay, but you have to understand that if you find yourself in a position where you cannot trim the aircraft, as in you've turned off the cutout switches, you try to do it manually, it doesn't work, but you have known that before you could use the trim switches and it did trim, well, in that case, you might be tempted to switch the switches back on again. That would be the only thing, by the way. There's been a lot of questions about, but can it not just, is there not a backup engine somewhere or a backup motor that might be, no. Stab trim cutout switches are in cutout, that's it. It's not going to be anything, it's just manual trim available. That's all. There is no other, the motor is disengaged from the jack screw, or it's at least not activated. So the only reason you will have trim activation is by switching those switches back on again, and it might be to regain some kind of trim authority of some sort. We will never know this, all right? So this once again is speculation, which we shouldn't do. But you asked the question, and the only answer I can give you that is absolutely clear is that the stabilizer trim motor, the electric motor that runs it, would not have worked unless the stabilizer trim switches were back on again. Cool. Are the pilots the only people on the cargo flights? Yeah, could be. They sometimes there's more than one or more than two pilots, maybe three pilots. So Max Aviation, this is the last question because I can actually hear the food arriving now. The trim runaway can occur in a nose up attitude instead. Yeah, it can. All right, the stab trim could happen, but once again you have the same procedure to. Pachi, it's food. It's food coming. Yeah, it could, but once again, the stab trim like a stabilizer runaway is very, very rare, extremely rare. So it's not something that under normal circumstances you should be worrying. That's it, guys. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you have a fantastic day wherever you are, because you can hear now Apache really want to go out and see what kind of food we've gotten. Take care of yourself and see you on next Friday. But, oh, by the way, if you're still here, guys, I will be in Aero Friedrichshafen next week. All right, from Wednesday to at least Friday, maybe a little bit of Saturday as well. I'll be in Aero Friedrichshafen, which is a big aviation mess, not mess, but a messe, a gathering of aviation people having stands. We'll be talking about loads of different things. I will be around the Bose Aviation stand, so if you have the Mentour Aviation app, I will have the app with me, of course, and you can just tag me, tell me when you're there, and because I'm not going to be at the stand all the time, I'm going to be walking around. But if you tag me there and tell me I'm at the stand now, I will know and I will get back to you there and we can have a talk. So see you there, guys. Bye bye. I'll see you in the app.